All right, go ahead.
Okay, well, guess what, folks? It's past noon here on the West Coast, and always when I'm cooking, I try to have a little glass of red wine available just for sipping every now and then. Today we're going to make Market Street meatloaf. This is the most delicious meatloaf in the whole world. And I got the recipe from this book. And as you can see, the book is kind of torn up. And that's because I've used it so often. And I'm going to make a copy of the page that has the recipe for my wonderful birthday daughter, Tracy, who will be 50-some years old tomorrow on September 11th. So as you can see, this book has been used a time or two. Along with my handy-dandy little glass of red wine, I want you to notice that I'm wearing a very torn up, my most favorite apron, my Broncos apron. Denver Broncos. Go Broncos. Well, right at the moment, I would like to introduce all the ingredients. I guess I'm trying to be like those pros on HGTV and the cooking shows. I would like to show you the different ingredients that go into the meatloaf. Let's start off with a pound of ground beef, 12 ounces of Jimmy Dean regular sausage, carrots, a yellow onion, celery, eggs, green onion, a red pepper, a yellow orangey pepper, and a green pepper. And in the back, we have half and half breadcrumbs, ketchup, and this is the great pan, I almost said lasagna. This is the great meatloaf pan that Dan got for me. And as you can see, you put your meatloaf in the pan, and when it's all finished baking, cooking, roasting, whatever you want to call it, you can just lift it out. And underneath you see little holes that where the grease from the meatloaf can fall through. So the meatloaf is not just sitting in grease while it's cooking.
So are there any spices?
Well, before we do the spices, have I done this part already?
You did. Mm-hmm.
Half and half? Okay. The spices include cayenne, cumin, nutmeg, black pepper, white pepper, and butter. I chop up the vegetables and in fine little pieces, and I saute them in butter. So butter is better. One of the important ingredients I forgot to mention is garlic. Now, personally, I know people love fresh garlic and chop it up and, you know, your hands get all stinky and icky, but I prefer the minced garlic you can buy in a bottle or a jar. It's already done for you and your hands don't get stinky. Now, there's a little bit of controversy about that in our house because Dan raises his own garlic and chops his own fresh garlic. And he tries to get me to use it, but no, I don't want stinky hands, so I use the one from the jar. Thank you. There we go. Here's Martha Stewart at her stove in her very own kitchen. As you can see, I've chopped up the vegetables, diced them up very finely, and they are sauteing in the butter. And I think they look beautiful. All the colors together. Wait till you eat them in the meatloaf. They're super. They add to the flavor and the taste, and the butter adds to the flavor. That's what we're kind of searching for, layers of flavor. And these will saute until they're soft, and then I refrigerate them for a little while so that by the time they get mixed into the meatloaf, they kind of hold their own. So that's the reasoning behind that. And I just hope my daughter Tracy, this happy birthday meatloaf video, It sounds kind of strange, but it's part of her gift, along with some beautiful meatloaf pans that I've gotten her. Blue Italian. So who knew Blue Italian made meatloaf pans? Anyway, this is just part of it, and I guess it looks like I better turn down the heat.
So how much butter?
I'll see you in a little while.
So Cheryl, how much butter do you use in the pan to saute the vegetables?
I use about 3 tablespoons full.
About 3 tablespoons. Okay.
Yeah.
And a medium or medium low heat?
Well, I start out on low heat because as I'm melting the butter and chopping and dicing the vegetables, I add the vegetables to the pan. So I don't want the pan to get too hot too quickly. So once all the vegetables are in the pan, I turn it up to a medium, and since I turned it up to medium, I noticed that it was cooking too quickly. And you have to be careful when you have garlic sauteing because garlic burns in just like 5 seconds. So you have to be kind of careful. So I turned it down, and I'm going to turn it down again because I just think it's the vegetables cook better that way. So far. One thing I need to explain about the recipe that I'm doing today for Market Street meatloaf, part of my birthday present to my daughter, Tracy, the Nurse of the Year, Hildman. Anyway, the recipe really is for 2 meatloaves, so I am only making 1, and so you would just half the recipe. I thought I'd better explain that before I moved on. The next part of what, I'm going to put this down. The next part of what I'm going to do is I'm going to start mixing the spices, the herbs, the eggs, the milk, the ketchup, and I might have to turn my back to the camera every so often because the recipe is behind me. There isn't quite enough room on the counter in front of me, so excuse my back. Number 1 is I'm going to combine the salt, the black pepper, the cayenne, the cumin, and the eggs and the nutmeg. I guess I sound like I pretty much don't know what I'm doing. Anyway, here I go. I'm going to turn my back on you just to get the right amount of ingredients in my big bowl. So here I go.
And
the spices call for all of the ones that I've previously mentioned, and you start off with salt to taste. So I'm just going to take the slightest little pinch of salt because some of the other ingredients already have salt in them.
Are you sure you put salt in there at all? I don't think I can even see it.
You can't see it.
You've got 12 grains of salt. Okay.
And I'm putting in black pepper.
Okay. How much black pepper?
Well, you can see it on the recipe. I'm not going to...
Okay.
I just put in a half a teaspoon of black pepper, but I don't know if I want to go through all the amounts or not. Okay. I'm going to put in 1/4 of a teaspoon of white pepper. And I guess I could just throw it in there, without measuring, but I don't know. I like to sort of be exact on this one. Okay, the next ingredient I'm putting in is cayenne, and I really should put in 1/8 of a teaspoon, but it smells so good, I'm going to put in 1/4. And you'll notice that I am obsessive compulsive, I guess, about putting the spices away as I'm going along. I have just told the director, Dan, not to stop so often. He wants to do the best job, I know, but really the focus is on the food and the spices in the bowl, and not on me. So the camera doesn't really have to be on me. I trust Director Dan's judgment very much. The next spice I'm putting in is cumin, and it actually calls for a teaspoon, so I'm going to put in half a teaspoon. And again, if you put in just a little bit more, a little bit less, that's entirely up to you. And as the camera, oh, okay. And now I'm going to put in a little bit of nutmeg. One thing about nutmeg, follow directions exactly on nutmeg, because a little bit of nutmeg goes a very long way. I am putting in 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg because its flavor can be overpowering, but this is just a subtle little flavor that it gives the meatloaf. And the next thing I have to add is the eggs, the ketchup, and the half and half. So I am going to break, you know, I'm not a professional, so you'll have to put up with the way I do the eggs. I try real hard not to get shells in the food, but like I say, some people go with their one hand and all that stuff. No, I'm still a two-hander egg breaker. So now I'm going to put in the ketchup and the half and half. I'm going to put in 1/4 cup of ketchup. You know, I got a little eggshell on my thumb. Oh well. Good thing I saw it so it doesn't end up in the food. Okay. I guess I should have thought of this beforehand. Anyway, I'm going to add the 1/4 cup of ketchup. I'm glad I had all these ingredients ready ahead of time, because I do this even if when I'm not shooting a video, which of course you know I'm not a pro and all this, but I like to get out all the ingredients ahead of time anyway. Even if I weren't doing this video for you, Tracy darling, I still get out all the ingredients ahead of time. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add 1/4 cup of half and half. So here we go. I like to break the eggs up a little bit before I start with my whisk. I seem to be cleaning my mixer quite a bit, but anyway, again, you know, I'm just Tracy's mom. Love to cook, and so I'm not a real pro at breaking eggs or whisking, but I do know when it's all done. I do understand that. I have a lot of you know, I've whisked a thing or two in my life, and anyway, you can tell that I'm not a pro. I'm just a regular person loving to cook, and that's what this video is really all about. Just a regular person who loves to cook, and especially for her beautiful Nurse of the Year daughter, Tracy. The next thing I'm going to add are I'm actually going to add the meat now. Now here is what kind of grosses me out, if you really want to know the truth. here is the beef, and here it's in a tube. And this, I'm not real fond of touching meat in the first place with my bare hands, but I guess this is what you gotta do if you want meatloaf. So this is the part that kind of grosses me out a little bit. I squeeze the meat out of the tube and put it in the pan, put it in the bowl with all the spices and the ketchup and the half and half. And I try to squeeze out all of the meat. I think most of it is out. Yes, that's true. Okay, so here's the other half. Okay, anytime. Yep, that came out. Next thing I'm going to add is I just use Jimmy Dean regular sausage. Not any of the flavored sausages that he has. Unless you make your own sausage, Jimmy Dean is really the best brand. And again, I'm going to gross myself out with a little. But if you want to do this, if you want meatloaf, if you want Market Street meatloaf, you have to do this part. And like I say, it just is semi-gross. But anyway, here we go. And again, squeeze out all those extra that's stuck in the package. Excuse me, but I have to turn around again. And okay, I'm going to add breadcrumbs, and I know you're going to see Italian breadcrumbs. Well, that's because I'm part Italian. And that the recipe doesn't call for Italian breadcrumbs, it just calls for plain breadcrumbs. But I have to get that little extra flavor in there somehow, and Italian breadcrumbs, I'll drink to that. Anyway, the recipe calls for how many breadcrumbs? It calls for, well, what is half of 3/4? Well, you know what? Here's how I measure breadcrumbs. I just sort of pour them in until I think there's enough. That looks about right to me. And another thing we're going to add, these are the sauteed vegetables that have been in the refrigerator for about 40 minutes or so. The recipe calls for the vegetables to be in the refrigerator for about an hour, but I think 45 minutes is plenty. You can see how small they're diced, and you just sort of mix them up a little bit, and then you add them to the meat mixture. And here comes another part that kind of grosses me out a little bit. And is you have to get your hands in there, and you don't want to wear a lot of jewelry. I am wearing my mother's pretty little gold ring, but don't look at the don't look at the manicure so much. Anyway, you want short, clean nails, and don't wear a lot of jewelry. Don't wear a lot of jewelry. And like I say, the manicure isn't the most important part. But when you're mixing up meatloaf, you have to do it with your hands. There's no other way to do it. That's how my mom did it. That's how my mother-in-law, Lucille Nauman, did it. Martha Stewart, Ree Drummond, any cook is going to tell you if you're making meatloaf, you got to get in there with your hands. So here we go. And the recipe also calls for mixing this, and once it's all mixed with the vegetables, you have to knead it. You have to knead this mixture for 5 minutes, And I'll tell you, I believe that that is very true. And I just sort of get my hands in there, and I want to make sure that all the vegetables are evenly distributed. And I don't know what this looks like on the video, but may make anybody who watches this video, may make you sick. But, you know, as I'm doing this, it smells so good with the cumin and the cayenne and the white pepper, the dark pepper, and all these wonderful vegetables. And you just, and of course, the sausage itself smells good. And it's such a wonderful combination. Now, my mother-in-law used to make meatloaf using ground beef, ground pork, and ground veal. And of course, my mom just used ground beef. So when I met the Naumanns, I thought, whoa, that's pretty fancy. And many years later, I found this recipe for Market Street meatloaf, and it said ground beef and sausage. So, you know, sausage itself has a lot of wonderful spices in it too. I've seen Dan make sausage, which is kind of a gross endeavor, but he gets his niece Hope over here and she helps him. Anyway, I am going to call this, well, no, it hasn't been 5 minutes. Even though I think this is pretty well mixed, I am still going to gel it together, because after this, we're almost to the end. And I hope this video has made sense. It's just, like I said at the beginning and in the middle, it's just a little happy birthday video for my beautiful daughter, Tracy, who I love so, so much. I'll try not to cry in this video, Tracy, like I did the last time with lasagna. I know, I get emotional, but yeah, when you're Tracy's mother, sometimes you get emotional. Okay, I think it's been about, I'm going to do this 1 more minute, and then I'm going to call it 5. And, but you can see why it's important to mix it up. And so make sure that you get every vegetable. You cut those vegetables, and that's not easy. So you want to make sure you get all those vegetables in there. I think that looks pretty well mixed. So I'm going to take my wonderful meatloaf pan that Dan discovered, and I'm going to plop it in there. And of course you want it all as smooth as it can be. Boy, I made a lot, didn't I? For half the recipe. Dan's moving the bowl, and I'm going to make sure this, you can see how this gets stuck on your hands. And I don't want vegetables on my fingers. I want all the vegetables in the pan with the meatloaf. And this is going to be a pretty big meatloaf, as it turned out, even for half the recipe. And I would like Dan to put the camera on me now. I hope that's on me. Good deal. You know, look at this beautiful apron. No, I don't need a towel. Here's what I do. I just wash my hands on my apron. You know what? That's what an apron's for. And when I do my laundry the next time, which is either tomorrow or Sunday, because this is a Friday, I just take it out and wash it. Boom, it gets clean. And it's always nice to have a little fun, no matter what kind of work you're doing, if it's cooking, doing dishes, scrubbing floors, making pie crust, you just have to have a little fun. And notice my wine is just a little bit of wine, Well, now the glass is kind of greasy because of my hands and mixing the meatloaf, but that's okay. I don't lick my glass on the outside. I'm gonna have a little sip.
So what temperature is the oven going to be, Cheryl?
Well, that's the next thing I was going to get to. You prepare a 375 degree oven, and again, this you let it says 35 minutes in the recipe. No way. It's more like 50 minutes at least, and you can keep testing the meatloaf to see if it's done, by using the temperature of 165. Okay, get a meat thermometer, stick it in there, and when it hits 165, you know that it's done. You don't want a meatloaf that's kind of on the rare side. You don't want a rare meatloaf. You want a well done meatloaf. So this is what cooking's all about. You got to get in there and get dirty and get down there amongst all the food. And I'm gonna turn on the oven to 375 and bake this about 50 minutes. And I want to tell Tracy that I love you so much, and I'm so proud of you. What a wonderful mother, wife, daughter, sister, nurse you are, and friend. Thank you, Tracy. It's thrilling to be your mother. It's thrilling to be your mother. And here's a toast to happy birthday, Tracy. I love you from Mom.
Happy birthday, Tracy, from Dan too.
The end. This is the final product, and it's really the best part because this is the part where you get to slice it and eat it. And if you want to use ketchup on top of it, all the better. So throw that bottle of ketchup on the table along with your meatloaf and your salad and any side potato dishes you might have, and maybe a chocolate dessert. Anyway, this is the final product, and this is what it looks like. Just thought you'd like to see it. Thank you for listening.